daily podcast on the Arizona Wildcats. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for keeping it Locked On Wildcats. I'm your host, Mike Luke. All right, we got a lot to get to here today. I'm also trying out a new computer with a new camera. But Arizona right now is ranked 11th in the nation, and that is, I think, very important to remember here. So I know a lot of fans are a little bit worried. Get that, totally get that. But you also got to remember that Arizona's ranked 11th in the nation, so it's not the worst thing in the world right now. So again, sometimes we are the victim of our own success right here. Now, a couple things to look at here. Arizona, by now, as we've talked about, we know that there are some issues right here, and I don't think there's any doubt about that. On the perimeter, offensively, there's a lack of. There are some real problems there. First of all, as we talked about before, a guy like Kirk Risa, just not that good of a shooter. I mean, you hate to say it because you certainly want him to be that guy, but right now he's just not that dude. And I don't know that there's anything that Arizona fans or the coaches will be able to do because, again, you've been here 3 years, and not only have you been here 3 years, you're just kind of that mid 30% 3-point shooter. And, we've seen a lot of great shooters here. We've seen the Salim Stoudemires. We've seen the Steve Kerrs. We've seen guys that are knockdown 3-point shooters. We know what it looks like, and this isn't what it looks like. But again, he still does some really good things out there, and I don't think that there's any doubt about that. I mean, he's a pretty good facilitator. He can do some things that, on the court, fairly good. But he's going to always be limited as far as the shooting goes, and I think that's where you're a little bummed out if you're Arizona, mainly because you'd like a guy who came in being talked about as a great shooter to be a great shooter. But you know what? Sometimes you don't get everything that you want. Now, at the shooting guard spot, Courtney Ramey. And again, I'm going to keep going back to this. Doug Gottlieb said that there are no pros in the transfer portal. Totally get that. But I think what's a little annoying or a little upsetting maybe to some Arizona fans is that you were hoping that you would get a player that was going to be a really good defender, who was going to be a kind of that jack of all trades. And he's shown that he has some ability. Like I said, I mean, anybody that watched him in Maui knows that there's some good stuff there that he can do. But he just hasn't been. I think, what a lot of people were hoping that he was going to be. So hopefully, he can maybe step that one up a little bit. Now, Pelle Larsson, and we're gonna get to what we need from these guys. But Pelle Larsson also, you just got to understand that he was a little bit oversold. There's nothing wrong with he's a solid player, but he's also not the dude who is all conference. He's not a guy that's going to be able to take over a game or anything like that. He's just, he's not, because he can't dribble and he can't shoot. So again, these guys, they have solid attributes to him, just like Pelle. Pelle's the best perimeter shooter, or excuse me, the best perimeter defender on the team by a mile. So he's got that going for him. But you've also got some real issues there, being that, he's very limited offensively. Now, all those things came to fruition here against against Oregon. But let's look about what's going on now with Arizona and the LA schools. What does Arizona need in this regard? Because there's certainly some things that I think Arizona fans would like to see. First of all, SC come into town. Andy Enfield. I like Andy Enfield. I don't care what anybody says. I think he's a solid coach for USC. and his teams are generally in the top 20 to 40 in the country, and they're going to be loaded next year. Now, you might be saying to yourself, Mike, they don't go a ton of places, but who cares? They made the Elite Eight 2 years ago. They're pretty good there. Now you look at the team this year. You look at the team this year, and they're going to be difficult matchup because, again, you got Drew Peterson, you got Drew Peterson, you got Boogie Ellis, you're getting back Big Vince Ichukwu. Sorry, I mangled that name. Didn't mean to. You got him. You got Joshua Morgan. You got a whole bunch of different players there. And again, for Andy Enfield, the good Andy Enfield team, the good Andy Enfield teams generally have a lot of length. And that's something that I think we've all seen over the years. That's the way that it is right there. Now, with you got Joshua Morgan, like I said, and Boogie Ellis can drop 30 on a given day. We've seen this. Drew Peterson can get you, 17 points, 5 rebounds, 5 assists. He's just a pretty good player. There's really no other way around it. Now, you might say to yourself, well, Mike, you know what? Where can Arizona attack? This is going to be fascinating. You're going to try to attack inside, but USC also has some extreme length on the inside. Again, with Joshua Morgan averaging 2.5 blocks per game. Joshua Morgan is he's a difference maker. He is a very, very good player. And when he came into USC, I think a lot of people were wondering what he would do because keep in mind, he came from Long Beach State. So, that's obviously a different level of competition, but there's also some, he's also a little bit better offensively than I think a lot of people thought. He has been a difference maker defensively. Now, you get Big Vince as well. And then on the perimeter, you've got some guys that can really play. They're athletic, they're long, they're going to be a real problem. Next year, I think they're going to be the preseason number one team in the country or a preseason number one team in the conference. Now, with UCLA now, that's where it gets really, really interesting. UCLA right now is one of the 5 best teams in the country. And there's a lot of reasons for it, but a big part of it, is that the internal improvement has happened really nicely for UCLA. Now, we already knew about Tyger Campbell. We already knew about Jaime Jacquez. But some of these other players have really, really stepped their game up. And one of those guys that is at the forefront of stepping his game up has been Jalen Clark. Clark came into UCLA as a top 70 player. And he's developed into one of maybe the best defensive player in the country. That's how good he has been. And again, he's kind of a jack of all trades. He's about 6'5". He can guard bigger players. He can guard wings. He can guard forwards. I mean, you name it, he's got it. And he's also dropping 15, 16 points per game. He's been a remarkable player for them. And I think he's a lock to be he's a lock next year he's a lock next year to be or locked this year to be the defensive player of the year. That's how good he's been. So those three guys are incredibly important for what UCLA wants to do. Keep in mind as well that you also have with those other, keep in mind too, that you also have some other, auxiliary players, for lack of a better term. You've got your David Singletons, you've got your Will McClendons, you've got players like that. There's just a lot to really like about this UCLA team, and they're tough too. So Arizona, we're going to talk about where Arizona is going to match up, what Arizona needs to do, but wanted to give you guys kind of a preview of USC and UCLA and what they can do. But let's talk about Built Bar, the elephant in the room. All right, you watch the big teams out there, the big, strong teams, and you say to yourself, Mike, those teams are really big. Those teams are really strong. And I think the thing that you got to remember about them is that yes, they're really big and they are really strong. And they're big, they're strong. And that's where Built Bar comes in, because these guys are going to the gym and they're thinking to themselves, all right, I'm looking forward to actually working out and going to the gym because I'm looking forward to eating afterwards. That's because that's where Built Bar comes in, because Built Bar tastes good. We all like Built Bar. All right. Now with the so check it out. Built Bar tastes good, gets you stronger, all the stuff you need. Built Bar can handle it. All right. Take a quick break. We're going to talk about how Arizona can compete with USC and UCLA at home. Thanks for keeping it locked on, Wildcats. I am your host, Mike Luke. Now, USC. The one thing about USC, and I like Andy Enfield a great deal, but the one thing about them is that they've got some limitations, though. Mainly Andy Enfield is not a great X's and O's coach, and he's a guy who is again very good very good. I think putting together a roster, putting together a strategy, but not a great X's and O's coach. And when things go sideways, things can really go sideways for them. So that's what you're certainly hoping with USC, that things are going to go sideways for them. But you look at it, there's a few guys. It's a young team. They're not loaded with scorers for per se, but they're also talented enough that they're able to get enough done. But Arizona is going to have to try to get the bigs in foul trouble. That's what they're going to have to do. Arizona is going to have to try to beat up USC down low, if that's possible. Again, it's going to be tougher with Joshua Morgan there. But the one thing about it is that with Arizona, you're going to have that opportunity, though, because Azuolas Tubelis, every single game is going to be 20 points, 10 rebounds. You need him to do that. And keep in mind, he's played his best games many times against USC, which is a big thing to keep in mind, that he has played his best games against USC. So remember when he dropped 31 and 8 on the Mobley brothers. So he's going to need a big game out of him, going to need a big game out of Umar Ballo as well. So again, those two guys are going to need to be big, but I'm also hoping that the role players, the Kerr Kriisas, your Pella Larsons, your Courtney Ramies, you're hoping that they can really step their game up. And on top of that too, Kylan Boswell getting continuously getting some more minutes. That's going to be a nice thing as well. So that's what you're looking for from Arizona against USC. And I don't think that there's any reason that Arizona can't do that against USC. Again, we're going to get to UCLA here in a second. But again, We're kind of at the stage now where I think that, we know what Arizona needs. We know what Arizona needs to do. Now, let's talk about UCLA here. This is the one game. And again, let's take a quick break. We'll come right back with you. And we're going to talk about UCLA and what Arizona needs to do against UCLA. Thanks for keeping it locked on, Wildcats. I'm your host, Mike Luke. All right. One thing UCLA doesn't have is a ton of height. We know this. Bona is at about 6'9", 220. He's athletic. He's a good athlete. He's your one typical big, and there aren't a lot of great freshmen in the conference this year because he's the best one. And again, that's not really a diss towards him. That's just kind of the way it is. He's very, very good, but he's also your only guy. Then you got a lot of guys. Again, Jalen Clark is absolutely great. Love Jalen Clark, but he's also 6'5", 6'6". This is a game where the peaks have to dominate. Umar Ballo, Azuolas Tubelis have to get their 45 and 20. That's period. They just got to get their 45 and 20. If they get their 45 and 20, then Arizona is going to be in really good shape. Second, Kirk Kriisa is going to have to guard somebody here. I don't know who he's going to guard because Tyger Campbell last year, when they made a point to go at Kriisa, Tyger Campbell went right at Kriisa. They're going to have to make that a point of emphasis. I'll put it to you like that. Then Arizona also, you're going to need something out of Courtney Ramey here because we've seen how he can play, and he can play well when they need him. Going to need him there. Now, Pella Larson, I don't know who Pella is guarding in this game, but his defense is going to have to stick out. He's going to need to really play a really good defense because he's the one guy that's equipped on this team to play good defense. He just needs to be able to show it. But again, these are big time matchups for Arizona because you're still ranked 11th in the nation. You still got a ton to like about this squad, but there's also been some real question marks that have emerged from Utah, from Washington State, obviously from Oregon. Getting it home, this is a nice way at home to be able to get what Arizona needs. And that's a couple nice wins, get back on the winning track. And I think there's every reason to believe that Arizona can do that. I'm actually picking a sweep right here by the Wildcats. Now, you might say, Mike, you're being a homer. Maybe I am being a homer, but it's at home. And you need to remember that Arizona has played its best competition against the best teams out there on its schedule, whether that's Tennessee, whether that's Indiana, whether that is San Diego State, Creighton, you name it, Arizona's played its best ball. And I look for them to be doing that. I look for them to do that against the LA schools as well. So again, big week here. We're going to have official predictions later on in the week here. And we're going to start talking a little bit Arizona football because we got some pretty good news coming up right here. We got some, I would imagine there's going to be another player added to the class, some very good stuff. Check it out. But again, we're going week by week right now. It's very fun. Game by game, day by day. Arizona is still ranked 11th. Don't lose the faith right here. Arizona is still a very good basketball team, and we demonstrated some of the reasons why. And again, this is a huge week for Arizona because if they win both these games, they could hop right back into the top 10 and right back in competing for that 2 or that 3 line. All right. Everybody, as always, everybody out there, have a great rest of your Tuesday, and we will be back with you tomorrow. You have been listening to